All right, today we're going to talk about a massive shift happening in decentralized finance. We're moving away from do-it-yourself yield farming and into the era of professional on-chain asset management. We're going to break down exactly what these curated DeFi vaults are, and more importantly, why you should care.
And I'm not kidding. If you were around in the early days of DeFi, you know exactly what I'm talking about. Trying to find and hold on to a good yield? Well, it wasn't just a casual investment. It was a constant, hands-on grind. It took serious time, serious expertise, and honestly, a whole lot of stress.
Now this gets to the very heart of the whole innovation we're discussing today. It sounds like a paradox, right? How can you have management without custody? But figuring this out is what unlocks a completely new level of trust and scale for earning passive income on-chain.
Okay, so to really appreciate where we are now, we have to take a quick look back. We need to understand the problems of the past, what we call the old yield grind. Let's dive into what that actually looked like.
Man, it was a total mess. You had to be glued to your screen, constantly watching rates jump around on different protocols. You had to literally click harvest to get your rewards, then figure out where to put them next. And every single click, every single transaction cost you gas fees, which could just completely eat up your profits. And all of that was on top of the constant worry about whether the smart contract you were using was even safe. It was the opposite of passive income.
So of course, the market had to respond. People were getting burned out. The first big step forward was the creation of protocols designed to just automate away all the most annoying, repetitive parts of that grind.
So you had these pioneers, think Yearn Finance or Beefy, and they came up with the auto-compounding vault. The idea was simple. You just deposit your tokens, and the smart contract handles the rest. It would automatically harvest your rewards and reinvest them for you. This was a huge deal. It saved people so much time, and, just as importantly, so much money in gas fees. But here's the catch. The strategy itself was still totally rigid. It was fixed, hard-coded right into the protocol.
And that is where we get to the real breakthrough. This is the next evolution. We're going from these static, pre-programmed strategies to dynamic, professionally managed portfolios that live completely and transparently on the blockchain.
Yeah, this table right here, it lays out the difference perfectly. We've moved from a model where the code is the entire strategy to a new one where a professional manager is actively moving capital around. But, and this is the absolute key, they can only operate within a very strict set of rules that are enforced on-chain, things like time locks and supply caps. It's just a whole different universe when it comes to risk management.
So let's break that down. What is a curator, exactly? Well, you can think of them like a traditional fund manager. They're the experts who design the investment strategy. The critical game-changing difference is that they are completely non-custodial. They never, ever have control of your money. They can only signal their intentions, which are then executed transparently through smart contracts.
And listen, this isn't just some niche crypto thing. When you have the chief investment officer of a major asset manager like Bitwise literally calling this model ETFs 2.0, you have to pay attention. It's about taking these complex on-chain strategies and packaging them into a simple, single product you can invest in, just like an ETF does for a basket of stocks.
And you can see this is already a serious professional space. We're not talking about some random devs in a basement. These are established quantitative risk firms like Gauntlet and respected advisory groups like Steakhouse. And together they're managing billions of dollars in assets. The fact that just a few key players are trusted with so much capital, well, that tells you a lot about the market's confidence in their expertise.
Okay, so the big question is how on earth is this possible? How can someone actively manage a portfolio if they can't even touch the money? Well, the magic is all in the architecture. Think of a curator's job like this. They're the brain of the operation. They design the whole strategy. They decide which assets the vault will hold, which specific lending markets it's allowed to interact with, and, this is super important, they set hard-coded risk limits right into the smart contract. Things like, never put more than 20% of the vault into this one market. Then their job is to actively manage the allocations within those pre-approved guardrails to squeeze out the best possible yield.
And this is the magic sauce, right? The immutable safety net that's baked into the code. The curator can't just wake up one day and decide to send all the money to some risky new protocol. The smart contract would literally just reject the transaction because it violates the rules. And if they want to make a major change, like adding a new lending market, a time lock kicks in. This creates a delay, maybe a few days, giving everyone who deposited money a chance to review the change and pull their funds if they don't like it. It's a system of checks and balances that you can actually trust because it's enforced by code.
So if there's one thing to remember, it is this. Curators manage the strategy, but the smart contract controls the money. They can propose the moves, but they can't break the rules. It's really that simple, and that is incredibly powerful. All right, so this new model isn't just some cool tech theory. It's having a massive impact in the real world. It's paving the way for both huge institutions and, frankly, everyday people to finally get involved with DeFi safely.
I mean, just look at the numbers. They're kind of mind-blowing. At a recent peak, Morpho, which is a leading protocol using this model, had something like $5.8 billion locked in its system. You just don't see that kind of capital flow into something unless there's a huge amount of trust and a real sense that it's built to last.
But honestly, this might be the biggest stamp of approval yet. When a company like Apollo Global Management, a monster firm from traditional finance with like almost $1 trillion in assets, makes a deal to get involved with a protocol like Morpho, that's a signal. That tells you that institutional capital isn't just watching from the sidelines anymore. They see this as real, legitimate financial plumbing for the future.
And look, it's not just the big Wall Street guys. On the retail side, when a huge exchange like Kraken launched its DeFi Yearn product, which is powered by this exact same Curator infrastructure, it pulled in over $100 million in just a few weeks. That proves there's a massive, pent-up demand from regular people for DeFi yield, as long as you make it simple and accessible.
And this is why this is such a game changer for regular people. For someone using Kraken, all of that on-chain complexity just vanishes. You just go to the Earn tab, you pick a strategy you like, you deposit, and that's it. You start earning. But behind the scenes, all this sophisticated infrastructure from Veda and expert curators are doing the hard work, managing everything on-chain, routing your capital to get the best yield. It's the returns of DeFi with the simple user experience of a fintech app.
So what does this all mean when you zoom out? By combining professional, expert risk management with the unbreakable, transparent rules of the blockchain, this Curator model really solves a lot of DeFi's early growing pains. And it leaves you wondering, could this be the blueprint for a new kind of financial future? One where the strategy is handled by experts, but the security and transparency are guaranteed for everyone, right there on a public ledger for the world to see.